Well, good evening, everyone. My name is David Lewis. Some of you know me. I've been here before. And I'm very happy to be here this evening. I'm actually quite grateful to be here this evening. That's going to be part of my topic. And people are still joining us, logging on. But while they are doing so, I'd just like to encourage you to get comfortable. There's a saying sometimes in meditation communities that meditators never have to wait around for something to start happening because it's already happening. It's just a matter of whether we're paying attention or not, whether we notice it's happening. And what is happening in your experience right at the moment? If you're reflecting on that, you're already meditating. So please find a comfortable seated position, or even lying down or standing, whatever works for you. A meditation posture that allows you to be both relaxed and alert. That careful balance. If you'd like to gently close your eyes, feel free to. When we close our eyes, when we close that particular sense door of the eyes, turning our gaze inwards, sometimes we notice that the other sense doors open up. The sense door of hearing, the sense door of touch or feeling. We notice the felt sense of being in this body. The touch of our back against the back of the chair, or our thighs wherever we're sitting, if we're sitting. Perhaps our feet on the floor. The information of the sense doors that we receive happens only in the present moment. Even the sense door of cognition, which the Buddha said was the sixth sense. Noticing the sense door of cognition isn't thinking about things, it's noticing that thinking is happening in the same way that we notice that hearing is happening. So we're sitting quietly and we hear sounds in the background, perhaps a car going by outside. That sound arises and passes away of its own volition in the present moment. Likewise with our sense of touch. We can experience the breath as a sense of touch. The breath reminds us that while we're in the body, everything's changing. Every breath changes. Breaths come and go of their own volition. We don't have to make breathing happen. But that's the reason the breath is such a popular meditation object, is it happens only in the present moment. And it's change. Sounds come and go, they change as well. Bodily sensations come and go. So simply sitting quietly with our senses, we learn important lessons about change. Everything is constantly becoming something else. And just as the breath comes and goes, sounds come and go in the present moment, thoughts arise and pass away in the present moment. Thoughts are not a problem in meditation. They happen, just like sounds. Sounds aren't a problem in meditation. They only become a challenge if we get attached to them, if we feed them or follow them. So the practice is, of course, not getting attached. Simply relaxing, receiving our experience. Whatever unfolds is what's supposed to be unfolding in the present moment. We don't have to make anything happen. We don't have to stop anything from happening. We simply allow it to be. Thoughts come and go. If we find ourselves getting caught up in a thought or weaving a story, if we're mindful, at some point we'll notice that that's happened. And that's a moment of waking up. That's a moment when you have the opportunity to let go of whatever it is, bring your attention back to the breath or the body, and start all over again. Not a problem. And relax. Allowing your body to settle a little bit more into your seat. Allowing the mind to settle into the body. Relaxed and yet alert to whatever's going on. Allow the peace and ease that is the peace and ease of the natural peace and ease of body and mind to unfold. receiving, allowing. And perhaps at the beginning of your meditation now, you might invite in some sense of gratitude for giving yourself this gift of stillness, gift of taking a break this evening, the gift of sharing the Dharma, the gift of Sangha. And then let go of even that lovely sense of gratitude and settling into whatever arises, just as it is in the present moment. So I'll just be quiet for a while, invite you to continue practice in this way, whatever practice you do. I'll ring a bell at the end. And where is your attention now? If the mind has wandered, got caught up in a story, simply notice that that's happened. It's not a problem. Gently bring your attention back to the body, the breath, even to sounds. Ground yourself once again in the present moment. Start again. I don't know about you, but I needed that. That was good. This time of year that I call the dark months, I'm sometimes a little prone to getting seasonal affective disorder. And most people experience that. People that get it experience it as something like a mild depression. It's due to short days and lack of light this time of year. And some researchers believe that it's not actually a depressive disorder at all. It's actually more of an ancient hibernation-like biological response that my body is just telling me I really need to be hibernating, which is maybe why I sleep 9 hours a night in the wintertime. But in any case, I'm not depressed, but I am aware of a crankiness that doesn't seem to have any reason or cause. That's kind of my clue. It just kind of came upon me a couple of weeks ago. Just found myself cranky for no reason at all. Everything's fine in my life. So I recognize that, and I try to get more exposure to light during the day. But during these dark months, I also turn to Dharma practices that generate well-being and happiness. So tonight I'd like to talk about a couple of those practices. Generosity is one, and gratitude is the other. They're kind of two sides of the same coin. They're somewhat underrated practices that are not only useful when you're feeling a little blue, but also for enhancing your frame of mind in everyday life. I can't think of better practices for a quick fix when you're out of sorts, particularly if you find yourself turning inward because you're finding the world maybe a bit hard to deal with. You might assume that the first practice the Buddha taught to lay people, such as ourselves, was meditation, but that's not the case. The Buddha recognized that meditation, like learning a new language, takes a while to master, and as such, it might not be for everybody. As you know, with meditation practice, it's helpful to have dedicated time, and it's helpful to have some guidance. And then it takes a while to carve new neural pathways, to find some stillness. But generosity and gratitude are easy to practice, and they produce immediate felt benefits. So that's why the first practice the Buddha taught lay people was generosity, or dana. Dana, as you probably know, was the word for generosity in the language of the Buddha's time. When the Buddha first created his Sangha, he recognized that it was important for the monastic community to remain connected to the lay community. He invited the monastics to go deep into the forest and find a tree or an empty hut to practice it, but not too deep in the forest. In order to keep the monastics connected to the world, he forbade them from cooking their own food or handling money. So to this day, monastics in our tradition go on a daily alms round, wherever they happen to be, in order to eat. If they want to eat, they have to go on their alms round. The surrounding communities which provide the alms, food alms, also provide other basic necessities, such as robes or land or huts for the monastics to practice in. And the monastics, in turn, share the teachings and provide spiritual guidance to their communities. One of the first lessons that a Thai toddler learns in life is generosity. As their family steps out of the house every single morning to offer food to monastics who come by on their alms round. It's believed in Southeast Asia that dana produces good karma. So everybody wants to get in on it. I've seen lovely pictures of 2-year-olds with the biggest smiles on their faces, reaching up to drop something into the dana bowl of an equally happy monastic. It's a joyful moment for both. The Buddha developed this practice in order to foster interconnectedness. He understood that none of us stands alone. We are all dependent on each other, just as we are all dependent on all the plants and creatures we share the earth with. Native Americans refer to the whole of creation as all my relations. Here's what Albert Einstein had to say about interconnection. I bet you didn't know that Albert Einstein was a great Dharma master. Einstein said, quote, "A human being is a part of the whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty." End quote. The Dharma teacher, Carol Wilson, who some of you may know, tells a story about the aftermath of a tsunami that wiped out coastal villages in Myanmar about 15 years ago. She had lived and practiced in a couple of the local monasteries there. And she heard that the government was not providing any assistance to the homeless villagers. So she raised money stateside and she traveled to Myanmar, where she bought rice and supplies and then had them delivered to the monasteries. The monastics, in turn, distributed the staples to the community. Carol reported that the very next day, when the monks went out on their alms round, that food that they had distributed had been converted into many cooked delicacies, which came right back to them in the form of dana. It's a beautiful story about interconnection. And here's another dana story that I love. I heard this from the monk that actually experienced this. This monk was with a small group of fellow monastics, and they were passing through a town in Appalachia. They weren't from there, and the people in the town weren't used to seeing Buddhist monks with shaved heads and saffron robes walking down the middle of Main Street with begging bowls. you can imagine. A policeman wearing a Stetson hat and mirrored aviator sunglasses approached the group and demanded to know what they thought they were doing. This monk explained that they were on their alms round and explained what that was about, explained they were Buddhist monks. And the policeman sternly ordered them to remain right where they were. And he disappeared into a nearby building. And the monks thought that he was probably calling for backup. But 10 to 15 minutes later, he emerged with a bag of sandwiches and beverages for them. And he wished them well on their journey. So you never know where you might encounter kindness and generosity. The practice of dana, which is a compelling alternative to capitalism, is carried on in our tradition to the best of our ability in the modern world. We try to keep it going. In most sanghas, like this one, there's a brief weekly dana talk that reminds us that the teachings are dana, they're freely offered, and both the sangha and teachers are supported in turn by the generosity of the sangha. I like to say when I give the dana talk that we're here this evening thanks to the generosity of yogis who came before us. And our own generosity is an offering to those yogis who will come after us. This is how the tradition has been carried on for 2,600 years. It's a remarkable thing. But in our capitalist culture, the practice of dana is not firmly embedded. We never had a chance to be those toddlers that were encouraged to share at the age of 2. And some of us find it uncomfortable, even some teachers. A lot of us skip or rush through what we call the dana talk because we assume that everybody has heard it and already knows that this is how we support the teachings in the community. So this talk is, in part, my humble attempt to counteract that. This isn't the usual dana talk, and I won't encourage you to make a donation tonight, although somebody else might. This is an invitation to do good and be happy in whatever way feels right to you. The Buddha said, if you know, as I do, the power of giving, you would not let a single meal pass without sharing some of it. Most of the practices that the Buddha taught were intended to either alleviate suffering or cultivate happiness and well-being. One of the things that I love about this tradition is the wide variety of practices for all manner of situations and mind states that arise in everyday life. Choosing the right practice for the moment is what we call skillful means. Generosity and gratitude are both considered to be happiness practices. And as such, you should be the principal beneficiary of your own generosity. Dana should be a happiness practice, not a grim obligation. Of course, the Buddha, being the Buddha, described generosity also as a mindfulness practice. He encourages us, and this is important, and this is an important aspect of dana. He encourages us to pay attention to the intention to be generous, and then to pay attention to the act of being generous. And finally, to also give equal attention to the memory of an act of generosity. So, future, present, and past. He invites us then to investigate how we feel at each of these stages of generosity. More often than not, the feeling will be an open-hearted happiness. At least that's my experience. When we are mindful of happiness arising out of an act of generosity, we will, of course, be inclined to practice further acts of generosity. It's motivation. Happiness is a motivation. So giving yourself a pat on the back is not to be shied away from in this tradition. I was raised in kind of a Calvinistic Christian household where people were kind of embarrassed to be generous, and then they didn't want to be acknowledged. And the Buddha said, don't do that. The Buddha said, feel the joy. A few days ago, I made a pot of soup for a neighbor who's been out of commission. He's recovering from radiation and chemotherapy. And I thought of my neighbor and wondered how he was doing, and I noticed that happiness arose with the intention to make him some soup. I had this idea, I'll make him some soup. And the idea in itself made me happy. And then happiness also arose as I was making it. And the happiness was still there as I rang his doorbell and handed it over. And now, as I recall that day, the happiness that arises with the memory of sharing. I don't even know if he enjoyed the soup. I didn't get feedback, but I certainly enjoyed sharing it. I was the beneficiary of that act of generosity. As I said, the flip side of generosity is gratitude. Aesop said that gratitude makes what we have enough. When we are content with what we have, we're more likely to be generous. As opposed to when we're feeling like we don't have enough, or we're envious of someone else, in which case we just contract into ourselves and we're less likely to think of others. In his wonderful and very popular TED Talk about gratitude, the Benedictine monk, Brother David Stendal-Rast, points out that we habitually think that we'll be happy when we finally get all our needs met, or have all our ducks in a row, maybe. But in actuality, he says, it's when we are grateful for what we have that happiness arises. So gratitude is a condition for happiness rather than the other way around. I had the honor of spending some time with Brother David some years ago. He's 97 years old now. I just looked him up. Make sure he's still alive. And I could report from having known him a bit that his living an itinerant life and monastic simplicity, he's one of the happiest people I've ever met. And gratitude is his message. He wrote a book called Gratitude, and he gave this TED Talk, which is one of the most watched TED Talks. I used to wonder why gratitude wasn't included with the Brahma Viharas of goodwill, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. Those are the sublime states that I know how he talks about frequently. Goodwill being metta. Metta, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity are the Brahma Viharas. And I always wondered why gratitude wasn't in that list. It certainly seems to belong there. And then the Spirit Rock teacher, Guy Armstrong, pointed out to me that gratitude is, in fact, included. Gratitude is sympathetic joy, or mudita, for ourselves. Gratitude is joy for ourselves. So like the Brahma Viharas of metta, compassion, joy, and equanimity, gratitude is a sublime mind state that can be cultivated. In my experience, gratitude is the easiest way to decondition a mind state of dukkha and to call up a mind state of sukha or happiness. It's the simplest of practices. But when you're feeling disconnected or at odds with the world, sometimes we forget the benefits of simply counting our blessings. The habit of a grateful mind didn't always come easy to me. I'm a bit of an aversive type. If you know about the Buddhist personality types, I'm an aversive. So many years ago, a Mission Dharma friend and I made a pact to share a gratitude text every day. We decided to work that gratitude muscle. One or the other, one of us would send a text about what we were grateful for, and the other one would reply in kind. It started out with big things like good health or a roof over our heads. But eventually, what we were appreciating were the little things, like a juicy orange or the smell of sea air. We did that practice for a year or two until we noticed that gratitude had become a habit. Now, gratefulness is a central part of my everyday practice. It's no longer intentional. It's just always there. And it's weird to say, but it's the gratitude is one of the things I'm most grateful for. I'm so grateful that I've got the capacity to feel gratitude because it brings some happiness into my joy, into my day. Every day. Gratitude turns what I have into enough. No matter what dukkha I might be experiencing, I can still find something to be grateful for. Joseph Goldstein says that gratitude is the acknowledgement of all that sustains us, a bow to our blessings, great and small. Gratitude is confidence in life itself. Like its cousin, generosity, gratitude is a practice of non-clinging that fosters interconnectedness. If dana is our gift to others and ourselves, gratitude is an acknowledgement that all things are a gift in our shared world. None of us is truly alone. As Ram Dass reminds us, we were all just walking each other home. So I'm grateful to be here this evening, grateful to be practicing and sharing the Dhamma, grateful for each and every one of you in this community. I'm grateful for the gift of the Dhamma, which the Buddha said is good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end. So thank you for your kind attention, which Simone Weil called the rarest and purest form of generosity. attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity. So you might not have been aware that you were sitting here being uh, offering Donna with your attention. But I got it. So that's what I have to offer. And I'm hoping that it might encourage some conversation. Anything come up for you? Any reflections on either generosity or gratitude? Or Laura, please. Thank
Hi
you for.
there.
Hi.
Thank you. That was just perfect. Definitely also feeling some seasonal affectedness and just thinking today that gratitude would be good medicine. And I really appreciate your framing of it. I wanted to ask the group, I loved your texting with a friend accountability thing for gratitude. And I wanted to throw it out to the group. Maybe they can put it in chat. Anybody that has a system for maintaining a gratitude practice that they like, if they could maybe share it in the chat for the group.
Sure. Or say it out loud if you'd like. Um, Everybody will benefit. If people have a good practice, everyone will benefit by hearing it. You can do the texting thing. You can do your own gratitude practices. Just make it part of your, at the beginning of your sit every day is start out with tapping into gratitude. Mary, please, Mary Gold.
Yeah, I do this thing a lot, but especially if I'm feeling whatever, a little sad or down or worried or anything, like that, then I especially do it. And a lot of times I do it when I take a walk, especially if I walk on the beach, and I will just very quietly count on all my fingers all the things I'm grateful for. It usually goes up to at least 20, and sometimes I start over and do new ones or whatever. And I think it's like looking at the cup half full too. A lot of times we're focused on some problem or some difficulty or we're feeling blue or whatever. And we forget how fortunate we are. I mean, we take so much in our lives for granted, just the fact that we can walk or we can hear or we can see or that we have loving people in our lives or whatever, that we have food on the table, and I think it's sometimes those things that we take so much for granted, but they are really so important. I've thought about it a lot with this storm. I've really thought of how grateful I am that I have shelter, that I can come away from those elements and be safe and warm and have food in the refrigerator. You just, I don't know, it sounds a little corny, but I think you get my drift. I think
Oh,
we all have a lot to be grateful for, and especially
I,
good people in our lives and our practice.
absolutely. And not corny at all. It's a wonderful practice.
And it's so easy because you always have your fingers there, this, that.
So easy.
And when you get to about 20, you say, hey, I'm a pretty lucky person in life. I'm very fortunate. We really can feel that gratitude.
And don't forget to feel to notice gratitude while you're doing your finger counting. Don't forget to add gratitude as something that you're grateful for. Because I
That's a
know
good
people,
point.
I know some very privileged, well-to-do people that can't do gratitude. I mean, they
Oh,
just
that's interesting.
they just don't have it, and I feel for them. They're missing out.
That's interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for your lovely talk, too. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you for speaking up. Anybody else have a gratitude practice or a generosity practice? Is anybody willing to talk about an act of generosity that made them happy?
David, I first wanted to just point out that the people are offering some lovely practices in the chat. If you haven't, folks haven't looked at that, please be sure to some really beautiful practices. And I just want to tell you about a really fun gratitude practice I did with my other Sangha. We basically every day, it was a group text. Every day we went through the alphabet. So you were to name 3 things, the letter A, that you were grateful for. The next day, the letter B. And it was just a really nice way to sort of to have fun with it, and also to be able to focus the mind, where it's like you sort of thought out of the box. So yeah, that's another practice, going through the alphabet and then maybe going back again. Out.
Terrific. It's great. I gave a version of this talk to another Sangha the other night, and at the end, and part of the discussion, I don't know what brought this to mind. I remembered this article that I read in the paper by a psychologist that was doing a study of some sort, and I can't remember what exactly he was studying. It might have had something to do with generosity. But he asked 2 questions and asked people to be in the study to be very honest about answering the 2 questions. And I'm going to tell you what they are, and you can answer for yourselves quietly in your own mind. The first is you go into a coffee shop and you order a cup of coffee. Do you leave a tip or not? So that's the easy question. Here's the second question. This one will make you cringe. Made me cringe. Do you leave a tip when the barista has her back turned and isn't going to notice, or do you wait until the barista turns around and sees you to leave the tip? There's not a right answer to that question, but boy, it really generated a lively discussion at the other Sanghas. Oh, yeah, do I need to be acknowledged if I'm being grateful? Am I doing that for some kind of ego feedback, or do I just want to connect with people? Somebody said, I just like to connect with people. So I don't know. I don't know if that brings anything up for anybody. That's kind of a philosophical question. Any other practices or comments? I love to hear about other people's practices. Mary, please. Oh, you're muted, Mary.
Sorry. There's another way to look at that too. If you leave the tip when the person is facing you, you're also kind of saying thank you to them too. You're letting them know you appreciate what they did. So
See? Good point. Good. That's why there's not a that's why there's not a right
right.
answer to that question. Maureen, you have something to add?
Well, David, I was just have been doing a gratitude practice now for a few months, and I was feeling pretty jaded lately. I've been having the grumps also, and feeling it was mechanical and contrived and blah, 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 blah. So this is just such perfect medicine. I am so inspired by your talk and everybody's input. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Maureen. And yeah, sometimes practices feel a little contrived. Sometimes doing metta feels contrived, but sometimes that's kind of what we need to do to get into the loop of it.
Yes.
So fake it till you make it.
Thank you.
It'll pay off sooner or later. Metta's another one of those happiness practices. Jill, please.
I was busy trying to figure out how to raise my hand. Yes, I have a gratitude practice. and I love gratitude practice. But the one that really, really warms my heart is one I have with my 20-year-old grandson, who's on the autism spectrum. And we text a gratitude every night. And sometimes he won't text back for a week, but I still send one out every night. And when I get that gratitude text from him, I beam. I can't, it's the greatest high I ever feel. So I just wanted to share that, to be able to, even with, when we started that when he was 16. And yeah, it's a beauty. Anyway, thank you for this topic. It's a wonderful topic.
It makes me happy just hearing that story. It's a mudita arises.
Yeah.
Does somebody else have their hand up and did I miss it? Mark, please.
Yes, thank you, David, for that talk. And I just had a response to um, the scenario you set up of whether you give it about giving a tipping, whether the person's back is turned or not. And I've noticed that I do not tip according to how well the person performs their service. I tip because I want to give something. And I don't base it on judging whether this waiter or waitress or whatever did a good job of serving me well. I just don't do that.
Thank you. That's a generosity practice. And somebody last night said that what they do is they often pay for the drink of the person behind them, and then kind of make sure they're out of the shop before people figure out what just happened. But that makes them happy. It's their own happiness practice.
Thank you.
John Garland, please.
Yeah,
Hi.
I just wanted to say that I have found this practice that has been going on and been suggested by someone associated with this group. This three things of gratitude. We kind of we just call the email 3 and we send it back and forth. And it sometimes every now and then we'll miss a day, but what happens is toward the end of the day, and I'll be sitting and I will be looking at my day and reminding myself of what made that day something I was grateful for. And what's happened is it hasn't been a real rote thing. It's been a growing in areas that I would not have looked before to find gratitude. And it's finding it in small ways and in many places and savoring something or whatever. And we just share. We don't have a responsibility to acknowledge or anything else. And it's like it goes into the wind, but it has helped me really. I don't know if I quite have that practice or not, but it has really helped me in my gratitude practice. And so I'm glad that I have a buddy like that. Isabel and I, we exchange every day. We exchange 3, or just about every day. It's wonderful. Hope she doesn't mind me adding her name out there, but I'm glad I do it. And she's really helped me.
I'm glad you do it too. It makes me happy to hear about it. And it will. My experience is it just becomes your nature sooner or later, the gratitude. It's said in our practice that every moment of mindfulness conditions further moments of mindfulness. That's a motivation to practice, because every time we practice mindfulness, that conditions further moments of mindfulness. That's how we become better meditators and better mindful people. But the same thing's true for gratitude. Every moment of gratitude that we have conditions further moments of gratitude. And likewise with generosity, is the more you practice generosity, the more the happiness you experience, in my experience, and the more happy you are, the more you want to be more happy. I'm so glad that I'm part of this tradition that puts such a high value on happiness, on personal happiness. The great translator and Buddhist scholar Analayo Bhikkhu, he's a monk, says that the entire path of Buddhist practice inclines towards joy. That's what it's all about. David, please.
Yeah, friends of mine who live next door recently had a child, and my partner and I noticed that they weren't reaching out that frequently to those friends around for help. And I went over and I was talking to them one night and I said, we're all here to support you. You're not alone in this, and you can ask for support. And they've started reaching out, whether it's an ask to help them get groceries, whether it's an ask to watch the kid when one of them goes out and wants to exercise. And what's been so neat is that I've shared with them that like it actually feels like a gift when they ask me for help. And then it feels like a gift offering help. And it feels like a gift when it repeats itself. And it took a lot of repetition. They said that for them, it always felt like they were putting someone out or inconveniencing someone. But over time, I think they've started to see that like them making the ask is actually a gift in itself.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And that's actually something that Howie taught me. Way back many years ago, I told Howie I was like your neighbors. I said, "Oh, I don't like to bother people. I don't like to ask. I don't want to put them out." And Howie just pouted and he said, "Well, you're not giving them the opportunity to be generous. That's not very nice of you." He didn't say the last part, but that's the way I interpreted it. But that's a lesson I learned is, oh, you're giving them a gift. You're giving them the opportunity to receive. That is a gift. It's not the way I was raised, but I'm learning. You can teach an old dog new tricks. Anybody else? This is fun. Well, I hope people play with this and, maybe try to bring some more gratitude into your daily practice and also play with what it feels like to be generous. I'm not just saying go out and be generous. I'm saying pay attention to what it feels like to be generous. Notice the warm fuzzies when you're being generous. That's the mindfulness practice of generosity. So that's what I'm really trying to encourage you tonight. It's not so much just to be generous, but notice how you feel when you're generous. Be mindful of generosity. So with that, Mary, do you have announcements perhaps?
I do indeed a couple of things. First, I'll just talk. I don't need to do a Donna talk. You've already given that, but for those of you who want to play around with what it feels like to be generous, you have this opportunity to offer Donna. Oops, let me put the information is now in the chat via Venmo. There's other means you can do it. So thank you in advance for your generosity. The other thing I want to let you know about is on Saturday, February 24th. There is going to be a day-long retreat in person at Fort Mason Center with Howie. It's called A Peace Offering. And so I have the registration information here in the chat. It's also in the reminder. This is the first time we've planned a day long. So we're really excited about it. And it's just so lovely practicing in person. And Fort Mason is, as most of you know, is wonderful. So hopefully we will see you there. So thank you, David, for the beautiful talk. Much gratitude.
Can I offer merit of a practice? Merit is, as I'm sure you probably know, merit is an acknowledgement that our practice, whether it's meditation practice that we did tonight, or gratitude, or generosity, or metta, the merit of those practices don't benefit just ourselves. They benefit everyone we come into contact with, all beings. And they all cultivate interconnectedness. So there's kind of standard phrases for merit of practice, but I found a new one that I want to share. And I don't know where this came from. It's not attributed. Just as the soft rains fill the streams, pour into the rivers, and join together in the oceans, so may the power of every moment of your goodness flow forth to awaken and heal all beings, those here now, those gone before, and those yet to come. May it be so. Thank you, everybody.